Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's quarterback starts, sits every matchup this week. The first matchup, Thursday Night Football, Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen, he was banged up a little bit at the end of the Week 1 victory versus the Arizona Cardinals with the left hand, but he came out and said he's good to go. And after coming off a 4-touchdown ball game, and obviously the first quarterback off the board in most fantasy leagues, he's a must-start every week. To a start for me as well. When you have an offense with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, even though I know he's banged up with the ankle injury, and we'll see if he's going to play in this game. This offense is dynamic, and especially at home over the last few seasons. So Tua, as a top 12 option, once again, is a start. New Orleans Saints at the Dallas Cowboys. Derek Carr came off a good game, but that was the Carolina Panthers, where obviously they're one of the worst teams, if not the worst team they're going to be this season, where Carr and this offense were up and down the field, winning that ball game 47-10. But this week, a tough matchup at the Dallas Cowboys, one of the better defenses in the league. And I think Derek Carr, he hasn't been on the radar in the last season and change for fantasy owners. This week, he's a sit. Dak Prescott a start. I know he didn't have to do much in the Week 1 victory, where it was a good balance of run and pass the football, but for the most part in that game, the Dallas Cowboy defense put the offense in good positions where they had to settle for some field goals. So Dak Prescott with a better matchup and the home opener for the Cowboys to start this week. Vegas Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens. Gardner Minshew obviously won the starting job in preseason in the training camp, but he didn't look good at all at the Los Angeles Chargers in Week 1. And this week, a tough matchup at the Baltimore Ravens, one of the better defensive units in the league. And Gardner Minshew, he's not even the quarterback that's going to crack my top 20 in the rankings this week. So with a tough matchup at Baltimore, he's an easy sit. Lamar Jackson, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy football. Those rushing yards, he looks like he's going to want to run even more this season after what we saw from him in Week 1. And he looks quicker as well, cutting some weight. So this week with a plus matchup, I think Lamar Jackson has a monster week once again. He's a start. New York Giants at the Commanders. Daniel Jones, a lot of New York Giant fans, they're calling for him to be benched or just released at this point. That's how bad he's been. And this week, I know it's a pretty decent matchup at the Commanders that just got torched by Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But even in 2 quarterback leagues, I wouldn't even trust Daniel Jones. You just don't know what you're going to get from him, and he can't throw the football accurate. He's a sit. Jaden Daniels, great rookie performance in terms of fantasy stats. It was for him, and he's going to be lethal on the ground this season is Jaden Daniels. He's athletic. He won the Heisman Trophy for a reason. I know he's not a great passer of the football, and we saw non-impact from his receivers, but with his running ability and adding some passing into that as well, Jaden Daniels this week I think is a top 7, top 8 option, and he's a start versus a weak New York Giant defense that Sam Darnold just had a good ball game against. Chargers at the Panthers. Justin Herbert's a start. I know his weapons aren't all that great this season. Ladd McConkey, though, had a nice debut for the rookie, scoring a touchdown. And Herbert, we know he's one of the more talented quarterbacks in all the league. Just the weapons aren't there. But this week in a plus matchup with the Carolina Panthers, that just made Derek Carr look like one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He's definitely a start. This week is Justin Herbert. Young and Sid. And for the number 1 overall pick in last season's NFL draft, so far he's looked like a bust as Bryce Young, and he couldn't get anything going at the New Orleans Saints. And even last season in his rookie year, he wasn't impressive at all. Not even from a fantasy aspect. Even as a quarterback in general, Bryce Young hasn't done much, and he's a sit. Indianapolis Colts at the Green Bay Packers. Anthony Richardson, what a Week 1 it was from him. And we saw it all from Richardson. The deep balls, running the football, showing power, and hanging in there, taking some big hits, as well as Anthony Richardson in a tough loss versus the Houston Texans. So this week, a middle-of-the-pack matchup at the Packers. With Jordan Love out, I think this Packer defense is going to be on the field a lot, and Anthony Richardson could pick him apart. And now he's got Alec Pierce as a deep ball threat to go with Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor this season as their 2 top offensive weapons. So once again, Anthony Richardson, every week, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback easily with his running ability and cannon arm. Malik Willis is a sit. He's not much of a quarterback. He's been a run-first quarterback in the times we've seen him a little bit last year with the Tennessee Titans, and he don't know this playbook all that well. He's only been a Packer for a few weeks, and now to step into the starting lineup with Jordan Love out, it's going to be a tough task. I don't care what defense he's versing. So Malik Willis, an easy sit. San Francisco 49ers at the Minnesota Vikings. Brock Purdy is a starter. I know week one he didn't do much, and it was the Jordan Mason show in that ball game. But Brock Purdy, he's a solid quarterback. Purdy don't turn the football over. And this week in a good matchup with the Minnesota Vikings, even I know their defense went out there performance at the New York Giants. Brock Purdy in this offense, I think, is going to have a big game. Once again, they need to start Sam Darnold to sit. Sam Darnold, no doubt about it, went out there week one, had a great ball game at the New York Giants. But this San Francisco defense possibly is the best unit in all pro football. So this week in a tough matchup for Sam Darnold and someone who wasn't even on the radar anyway, he's a sit. Cleveland Browns, Jacksonville Jaguars, Deshaun Watson, another off the field issue. We don't know if he's going to play in this game, but I'm assuming he's going to play in this game. And one way or the other, I'm not going to play him on my roster is Deshaun Watson. So this week, a horrible matchup for Deshaun Watson, but you can't trust him. He hasn't been fantasy relevant for the most part now in 3 seasons when he was one of the better quarterbacks in fantasy football. So this week, a sit. Trevor Lawrence a sit for me as well. This Brown defense is solid, no doubt about it. And they held the Dallas Cowboys down in that ball game. In terms of throwing the football, Dak Prescott only had 179 yards and a touchdown. So I think with Trevor Lawrence in this offense, I don't see him doing much, even though it is a home game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Seattle Seahawks at the New England Patriots. Geno Smith, he went out there and had a pretty decent performance in week one in the victory versus the Denver Broncos, where their defense is a middle of the pack type of day. And this week they're going to Gillette Stadium versus New England Patriots, where this Patriot DST has been a decent unit, even though their offense has been one of the worst units in the league over the last few seasons. But they went into Cincinnati and they shut down that offense. But I think Seattle in this one, they could find ways to score the football. They got a few weapons, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett coming off a good game, Smith-Njigba, even though I don't think he's really going to put up numbers this week. Noah Fant, Kenneth Walker if he plays, Charbonnet out of the backfield. So I think Geno Smith could have a decent game as a borderline option. Jacoby Brissett, he's a sit for me in this ball game. We didn't see much out of him week one. He's more of the veteran and game manager, where this team's going to be a ground and pound type of team, I believe, is New England. To get the lead and rely on their defense. New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, Aaron Rodgers, I thought he was all right at times in that week one loss. San Francisco 49ers. Niners, we know, is one of the best defenses in the league, but Rodgers still trying to get his footing under him. Him and Alan Lazard hit on some plays. Garrett Wilson looked good in that one, and Breece Hall out of the backfield. So this week, out of Tennessee Titan defense, which is pretty good as well, shutting down the Bears offense in week one, I still think Rodgers could go out there and have a decent game, and I actually would give him a starting nod. Will Levis is a sit. Jets, we know, one of the better defenses in the league. Brock Purdy, he didn't do much in week one in terms of fantasy football versus the New York Jets. And Will Levis, after the Chicago Bears, had a big performance versus him. I don't see him doing much. He's an easy sit. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions. Baker Mayfield to start, coming off a monster 289, 4-touchdown performance. And this could be a potential shootout over there in Detroit. I know their secondary's improved with some good additions in the offseason for this Lion team. But Baker Mayfield, he's been locked in ever since he's been a Buck last season. And him and Mike Evans are making big plays left and right. And like I said, with this being a potential shootout, and Baker Mayfield is a quarterback who could get that football down the field and take chances. He's a start. Jared Goff, the start for me as well in this one is Goff. I know he didn't have a great game in week one versus the Los Angeles Rams, but at home he's a better quarterback than he is on the road. And I know it was a home game for Goff. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's not going to have another performance where he does nothing to show for it, and under 6 fantasy points in PPR leagues. And also with Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield, Sam Laporta, and if Jameson Williams could really emerge after coming off a monster performance, I think Jared Goff weekly will be a quarterback right in that top 12 range. And this week versus Tampa Bay in a potential shootout, he's a start. Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Matthew Stafford is start for me in this one. Matthew Stafford, even without Puka Nacua, at least for the next 4 weeks, I think, to go out there and put up numbers for this Ram team. He's a gunslinger. He gets the football down the field. And we saw the toughness once again in week one at Detroit, where he took some big hits and he might have sprained his ankle in that ball game, but he still hung in there with Matthew Stafford. He made the big throws, and him and Cooper Kupp are back on that same page like they were with Kupp healthy now at 100%. And we saw it in week one. Kyler Murray a start. I know week one he got off to a decent start in the beginning of the game and then fizzled out and didn't do much. But a lot of quarterbacks had underwhelming stats in week one. And Kyler Murray in this offense, they still got to get adjusted a little bit. Got to get the passing game going. Marvin Harrison, only had 4 yards in that game. He's going to do better, obviously. Trey McBride, only 30 yards. He's going to do better. And Kyler Murray, with his running ability each and every week, he's a quarterback you're going to have in that lineup. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, if he does start in this game, he's a sit. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to do much as a starter for this Steelers team, and he don't have running ability like he did. Besides George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, there's not much in that passing game. And I think Russell Wilson's best days are behind him. He's a sit. Justin Fields, he will be a start for me, even though I'm not enthused about starting him in your starting lineup, but his rushing ability and plays, he can make nothing into something, is Justin Fields. We've seen it the last few seasons with the Chicago Bears. In week 1, he was pretty good on the ground. Once again, over 50 rushing yards was Justin Fields. So he's a quarterback I'm not that high on this week with a tougher matchup at Denver, but with his running ability, he's someone you got to take a shot on and put in the starting lineup if he's playing. Bo Nix is sit. Bo Nix, he didn't look great pretty much at the Seattle Seahawks. They were protecting him a lot of short passes and underneath stuff, and then once it was too late in the game, they opened up the offense. But this week in a tough matchup versus Steelers defense that I think is one of the better units in the league, he's an easy sit. Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Burrow and this Bengal team had a horrible ball game, but I'm going to give him the starting nod. We'll see if T. Higgins returns in this game. Jamar Chase, he wasn't 100% in that game. So I think Joe Burrow, he's a good quarterback, no doubt about it. But the last couple seasons, injuries and just playing poorly has been doing him in fantasy football. But this week at Kansas City, in a game where, Burrow and this Bengal team want to prove doubt is wrong, I think he goes out there and puts in a decent performance. Mahomes, he's a start each and every week. I know week 1 wasn't the greatest of games, but now he has weapons that he could count on besides Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice looking good once again. Xavier Worthy, the rookie, coming out, putting up 2 touchdowns in his debut. And Travis Kelce, even on a bad game, Mahomes still had 20 fantasy points in leagues. Sunday Night Football, Chicago Bears at the Houston Texans. Caleb Williams and the Bear offense just didn't do anything in that one, and it's hard to trust Caleb Williams in his first game on the road and first game nationally televised at a Texan defense I know gave up 27 points to the Indianapolis Colts, but I think they're going to make it tough for Caleb Williams. And I think Caleb Williams, it's a lot of people overrating him and expecting him to step right in and be this great quarterback, and no doubt about it, he's got great weapons. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift in the backfield, Rome Odunze, even though Odunze's banged up and he's week to week right now with injury. Caleb Williams in a tough matchup on the road after a pretty decent home opener on paper matchup. He couldn't do anything. He's a sit. CJ Stroud start each and every week. This offense picked up where they left off with passing, running the football, and Stroud, he's an accurate quarterback, and I think this season he's got a shot as possibly being an MVP candidate. Is Stroud. He's a start in the final game of the week. Atlanta Falcons at the Eagles. Monday Night Football, Kirk Cousins is hit week 1. Taking big hits was Kirk Cousins. He had a couple turnovers in that ball game. Versus one of the better pass rushing teams in the league in the Eagles, especially on Monday night when we know Kirk Cousins in nationally televised games hasn't been good throughout his career. He's a sit. Even though I think this Falcon team, they're going to figure things out as the year goes on. This week just is not a spot, in my opinion, for Kirk Cousins to be in your starting lineup. And Jalen Hurts, he's a top 2-3 quarterback weekly. This week, a good matchup with the Falcons coming into town. This is a high-powered offense, and even in the game where he didn't look all that great as Hurts, he still went out there, still put in a top 10 performance at the quarterback position. That's quarterback starts it every matchup for week 2 of the fantasy football season.